Hey everybody, what's going on? Dace here, and today we are taking a look at my Maniac mode clear in Cosmo Dreamer. This is actually one that I recorded back in December when I got the game. I had a blast with this game for a very short period of time that I was playing it, and then I think part of why I just held off doing a commentary was because it was a 40-minute video, and I was thinking to myself, that's kind of long. I'm not sure anyone's really going to want to sit through this sort of thing and listen to my thoughts. And I wasn't even sure if I was going to even have too much to say about it, but someone expressed interest in specifically a commentary for this. And that was kind of just the moment where I said, yeah, you know what, I certainly don't mind doing that then. If there's at least one person who's interested, that's fine by me. So, and it's interesting because I was just clicking through here, just through the video, earlier, just to get a feel for some of the music and stages and things like that. And yeah, it kind of just inspired me to jump back into this, because at the time I was playing, when I cleared it, I wasn't too interested in continuing to play, even though it's a really fun game. It's very satisfying. It's engaging. It's got a very decent challenge thrown into the mix here. It's just an all-around fantastic game. But there was just something about it that kind of felt like, yeah, you know what, I'm done with this for now. But I do feel like picking it back up and doing like the true last boss, which I think has some sort of specific condition. I think one of my friends mentioned that you need to have a certain amount of lives by the final stage or something to that effect. And at the time I really didn't want to fiddle around with that kind of thing, but I think playing a whole bunch of Gray's Counter GM lately kind of has me thinking about this style of game again, and that's, I think, part of why I'm a little more eager to get back at this now, in conjunction with my rolling gunner practice, which is still on the go. So anyway, if you don't know this game, it's got all sorts of different ways you can customize your build for going into it. It is a game that just feels incredible to play. It's got awesome patterns, very discernible patterns, and stuff like this where you're just collecting bubbles and stars. It's just very satisfying, like I mentioned earlier. So anyway, that's the first stage. One of the things that blew me away when I first started jumping in was just how varied the music was in this game. You'll have some stages that, I'm not sure how to word it really, but like it's got like an electronic sort of feel to it, and then other ones have these really, or at least one of the stages has like a jazz sounding song, and just the variety alone is just really refreshing, because often you'll just be in a game and it's kind of every song is the same sort of sound in some ways, but that's not the case here. Everything just feels super different in every single stage, and yeah, it's just a blast, like getting used to the enemies. A lot of these enemies will have different stages to them. Like, for instance, needing to, well, you don't have to. I think it's just the weapons I have that just happen to hit some of those parts to that sun or like the planet character. Or sometimes you'll blow up a big enemy and it'll turn into a bunch of smaller enemies and then even smaller ones and that kind of stuff. So in that sense, there's a lot to unpack here, because you can strategize if you feel as though certain things are just a little too risky for your liking. You can maybe just avoid stuff instead of tackling and making the situation even more intense, because now you have more enemies on the screen and that sort of stuff. So as for the boss battles, I love it because unlike many games where bosses will kind of just be doing one attack pattern after another, and it's kind of, in some ways it feels like, okay, it's just bullets that don't really fit any sort of theme. Not like they need to, because I certainly don't mind that in games, but like this here, like, it's just very interesting stuff. Like, this character is holding a pair of scissors, and we have these blades, or like these things ripping across the screen. And I think the stage after this one is has even a stronger theme to it. I'll touch on that when we get there, but it's just really, really cool to just see the layers of variety and theme that they've kind of packed into this experience. It's just really fantastic. Oh, this is the jazzy song. Not like you're gonna hear it much, because I put the volume quite low for when I do these commentaries. Yeah, I definitely I think I'll be playing this again tonight, probably. But yeah, if I'm not mistaken, the creator who did this, I'm not sure how many people were involved. It might be creators, I'm not sure. But I'll just say they for the sake of argument. But if I'm not mistaken, they are doing, or they have it out already, a game called Like Dreamer, and I think that's scheduled for Switch. I wouldn't quote me on that, because I'm not 100% positive, but I'm almost positive that's scheduled for sometime. And I think that's going to be really cool, because if it's anything similar to the quality that we have here, that's an automatic purchase as far as I'm concerned. Even though I haven't been purchasing really much of anything, to be honest with you guys. But that will be a no-brainer. And just, the smooth, soft colors in each stage. And I just love how some of these big enemies just are firing from multiple spots in conjunction with other enemies that kind of just target you and do different things. Like some of the later stages, as we will see, because we're barely into this, not even 10 minutes out of the 41 that this is, like some of the stages just get off the charts with the intensity and the bullet density and all of that. But what I really enjoy is that your hitboxes, you're tiny, and when you want to move slowly, you can do that very easily. And it's just a lot of fun figuring out how to approach these fights and the stages themselves. So because this is a longer video, there may be times where I'm a little more on the quiet side because I'm just watching. Whereas when I'm doing something, let's say that's only 20 minutes, 25 minutes, it's easier for me to kind of just fill the space. Not that I think I have to fill the space, but I think when I do have a shorter duration, it's just, yeah, there's usually enough to say that it just happens to fill that amount of time. And I'm not sure if that will be the case here, so there may just be some extended pauses. Now this is one of those games where it can look crazy, and in some ways it is, but one thing I did notice is that the hitbox is pretty generous. There were times where I was wondering, how did I not get hit 5 times, like right then and there? But you just somehow kind of made it through. Now the downside to that is, for me anyway, it kind of it makes it so that I'm not really able to get as solid a feel as I would like for precision playing. It kind of forces you to just, in some situations anyways, take a chance, and if you get hit, then you get hit, and if you don't, then okay, great. Which I'm not super big into. I find that to be the case, even though I love version 1.5 of Mushihime-sama, sometimes there are situations where like you know you want to do something, but you don't think you can actually make it through. And sometimes you will, and then it's like, well, okay, I want to be able to play smart, but if things are kind of left up to chance, then that kind of, in ways, for me anyway, it feels like it kind of defeats the purpose of some of these games anyway. Not everything, but I want to be able to more or less know more than it's kind of letting you, so that I can just know things to a T and execute it consistently a certain way. But yeah, just given the nature of the hitbox, I don't feel like that's the case in this game as much as others. But I think part of that too is just playing more and just trusting that eventually that awareness will kind of filter in. If I see enough examples of moments where, okay, I easily got away with that, maybe I can just trust it a little more and then just observe more at that point and just yeah, kind of form my foundation, allow it to shift as it goes. So yeah, here's an example. Like we have this like very plant-like boss fight. We got like vine roses or something, just kind of like going all over the place. That's a big theme in this. And not to mention like the background. If you look at the background, you can see rose, like the pink roses and stuff. So it's cool. It's neat to see these design choices and how they're implemented in terms of the boss attacks, instead of it just being standard bullets that don't even have any sort of imagery attached to them like these do with the like the blossom heads. This can kind of get hectic at times. It's easy to be focusing on just one or two that are chasing you or cornering you, and then suddenly you have 5 more that have kind of closed in on your area. So you really got to watch stuff like that. But things like that are fun. That last attack, it's easy to fumble, but at the same time, it's just a matter of getting the timing down, paying attention to things, and just weaving a certain way. I love when stages just start off nice and heavy like this. It's not too much pressure, but it's enough that you know things are amping up quite a bit. So it's funny because I don't think I was aware of this until after I cleared the game. But for those who don't know the game, I think if you point blank enemies, then they release more bubbles. And bubbles are what fill your dream gauge, from what I recall. So that's good to know, because I do love playing with a nice risk involved, and point blanking is one of my favorite ways to do that. But it doesn't always feel the most engaging in some games. Like some games do it amazingly well, and other games, they do it okay. I haven't really played enough of this with point blanking in mind to really gauge how decent it feels, but in general the game feels well, so that's saying something at least. And, oh yeah, getting as many lives as you can during the run, that's vital too. Just some really cool attacks here, like these vines. I haven't actually really experimented with what happens if you don't shoot them, like if they just keep trailing onto the screen, but I do like that when you destroy them, like the blossom, like the head part explodes outward. It's another example of just the really creative attacks that they've kind of attached to certain enemies or bosses. Things, yeah, types of attacks you don't really see too often, unless you just play games that are very similar to this, because I'm sure there are some, but based on what I have played, there's a lot of things that just strike me as new and refreshing. This boss can trip me up at times because it... Yeah, I think one of the last attacks is kind of this... It flies across all over the place, like out of sight and then back in sight across the screen, and it kind of just like spraying stuff all over the place. And because there's a time limit ticking down, sometimes it's tricky polishing off all the health. Oh man, some of these attacks are just so great at pushing you to the edge without you even realizing. Another thing I think is really cool in this game is how at the top near the boss's health and name, you see the number of hearts remaining. So that obviously represents the phases, so we are down to the last one, as you can see. And yeah, for the final boss, or like if you go into, I think the extra stage or whatever it's called, when you get there, it's just this ridiculous amount of hearts, and you're just thinking like, oh my god, like we're going through like 16 phases, or it feels like that anyway. 16 phases of absolute chaos. This is what I mean, like we're at 6 seconds left, and I'm wondering like, are we even gonna be able to do this? Because like, sure, we're still damaging it, but sometimes it just feels like it's gonna be really close. And this is another song I absolutely love. I love those games where they just either they know how to balance or just happen to pan out that way, but it's this incredible balance of intensity and just being super chill. Like, you can kick back and relax even if this looks like a crazy time. There's just something very therapeutic about it in ways. And I think that's where the music comes into play. Because if this had just, yeah, blaring techno or something, you might not feel the same way about it. And the backgrounds. That's another thing that I think contributes to the overall mood of the game too. Because it's not like we have these futuristic pixel art cityscapes or anything like that. It's just really soft colors and just peaceful things. I'm glad I'm doing this though, because the raw video file has been sitting on my computer since December and just taking up precious space, which I don't have much of these days anyway, because projects and videos and things have been piling up a little bit. So I think the other night when I was doing some recording, I was down to something ridiculous like 8 or 9 gigabytes of space left. So it's definitely time to just bang out a bunch of commentaries, get things off the computer and scheduled for release. But I love these massive enemies here. Just so cool. Some of these patterns are easy for me to trip up on. But I do really enjoy the build I'm using here. I find it to be pretty effective. I do want to experiment, and I have experimented with other ones, but I do want to do more because I feel like there's probably quite a bit of potential that I'm just not tapping into yet, that may even give me a little more longevity in runs, a little more to work with. I do love how much you can damage them while you're firing off your whatever it is, your dream explosion. That reminds me a lot of the Stage 5 boss in Rolling Gunner, when you're in outer space and the thing is just... Obviously it's very different, but it's kind of just a similar vibe and look to me. Oh, this is an attack that I just... Oh, this one can mess me up so much. Even though it's not dreadfully difficult, it's just, it really demands a lot of attention. Because things are just kind of like bending and shifting all over the place. Tons of waves just flying in, unleashing and being on their way if you don't take them down quick enough. Another interesting thing is just how simple a lot of these patterns are to avoid, and yet there are some that pose serious issues for me. And it's the same with the bosses, like some are just the easiest things to read and to avoid, but other ones will just be a whole other story when you really don't want to be losing lives or using your explosions and stuff. Excuse me. Aw, like what? Come on, man. And great sound effects too, for the explosions. The first time you come to this part, it can be kind of intense. Because you're not necessarily thinking about the timing of their movement, how they pause for just a second and then they head to the targeting point. And so you can very quickly wind up in these very cramped areas, avoiding the green or the purple shots from the green enemies, while also avoiding the last few of these pink things that come rolling into position. You can just get messy very quickly. I think this was the first boss. I have no idea what that was about. I have no clue what I was doing there. This is the first boss that really gave me issues. Everything else was just a matter of, yeah, like some attempts, but this kind of took a greater toll. Not like days or anything like that, but it was just the first major threat that was just yeah, one of those situations where, you know, okay, I've really got to figure this out and play well, because this is where the run can end if I'm not careful. And guarantee there are better ways to go about it. Yeah, it's not like what I'm doing there is the smartest. I don't think so anyway. I think there's a much better way to crack that. I do love the moments where you know you're just so close to taking that next phase down on the boss. So if you can just survive like 2 more seconds, you don't have to fire off that bomb that you would otherwise have to use just to stay in the fight. One thing I do, well, another of the many things I do enjoy about this game is how you don't, like, you want to be smart with your resources, but you don't have to play conservatively. I think I want to get some water because my lips are getting dry here. Sure, it takes some time to fill up your dream gauge, but if you need to use it, just fire it off, because it's better than taking a hit. And you can always, yeah, just do what you need to do to charge it up again, or just play better. Just, I think that's something I do if I know, okay, I used a bomb here and I don't have another one until I get that charged up. There's a part of me that just, I think, automatically shifts into the mode of, okay, play really well now because you don't have anything to fall back on. Oh, that was a big error. I love this song too. Oh my god, forgot about that. Yeah, it's going to be great getting back into the swing of things with this game, getting used to stuff, just see how runs go. Just a very well done game. Oh my god. Just watching this is just very revealing about how good of a game they made. I was so thankful to come out of that without needing to use anything. Another thing I feel like the game does well is it doesn't give you an insane amount of bullet cancels, but during the times that it does, it's just really, really handy because you know you can just kind of time things a certain way, and then that's one less section that you need to think about even ever touching your bombs. Because, you know, if you just pace yourself, you can make it through without using anything. And that's always a plus. Aw, man. This part can sometimes trip me up too. Ah, like what? Sometimes I'll be so close to just taking one of them out and then that would simplify everything. Now it has been a while, but I'm pretty sure this is the last boss, and I think it's just that the whole fight does take an actual 6 more minutes or something. Which makes sense given the amount of hearts the boss has. So it must have been the extra stage, or whatever they call it, the X stage, where it's got like 1 billion hearts when you make it to the final boss. Ooh. And some of these attacks just look incredible. Like, I love those huge pink clusters that just come spilling out. This reminds me of a Graze Counter GM attack, actually, that a few of the bosses have, or at least two. Very, very similar idea. This attack, oh man, it's so easy to mess this up. Oh my god. This one's actually very, very simple. Or at least my method for the most part. I might still fumble in this video, I don't remember what happens, but yeah, I usually just travel away from, ideally make it through so that you're only ever entering and exiting one of those attack things at a single time. Just by getting through whichever one is already on screen first as quickly as possible, and then you can kind of travel back to the next one that is starting to spread out, instead of needing to be in the middle of the screen attempting to make it through 2 or 3 at the same time. Like, that's just a mess. And when I say some of the attacks are easy, I just mean, like, once you know the trick of it, like, sure, it's going to look crazy, but there are quite a few things where you can kind of just stick to the side of a line or something that's coming by, and then you just use, like, a small gap as a crossing point to get to the other side. And there's just a lot of freedom in that sense, but of course, you got to figure out how to maneuver these. Otherwise, it will feel messy and all that. Things just get more and more complex with this. Wow. So that's that. That actually, I feel like that actually went pretty well. I mean, in terms of just chatting away. I feel as though this game must have inspired Hazelnut Hex to some degree, because it's Hazelnut has just the soft colors like this, and if you look at the thumbnail for the game, it's pretty much the same color scheme as Cosmo Dreamer. Oh, wow. So anyway, I might as well just say thank you to everybody who has checked this out. I realize this wasn't exactly a guide of any sort. So if you do have questions about specific parts, or you just need a little advice, yeah, just drop something in the comments. Or even if you don't and you just want to share your thoughts on the game, if you've played it or you would like to check it out, that's great too. I always appreciate that. And yeah, thanks so much for being here, for watching, being here just to see the experience unfold. Yeah, we'll see you next time. Have a great day, night, whatever time it is, and yeah, take care.